This is a Sisopsin corn that actually was given to my mentor by my friend Rachel from Mohegan's great aunt Gladys Tantaquidgeon. And so it's the Lenape variety from the Delaware people, which are people whose land I live and farm on now. This is a fish pepper. Who's heard of the fish pepper? Okay, a few more of you. And that might be because of the work of my mentor. Dr. Weaver found this in his deep freezer, his grandmother's deep freezer, in the 60s. His grandfather had died 10 or 15 years earlier, and he discovered his whole seed collection in little baby jars with labels. And that's how he revived the Roughwood seed collection, which is where I was working the last few years. And this was one of those seeds. It's a pepper that is hot and was used in the catering communities of Baltimore, the black catering communities of Baltimore, in the oyster dishes and seafood dishes. And that's why it's called the fish pepper. And they would use these white fruits. It's a variegated plant with variegated leaves and fruits that ripen red. But they would use the white peppers in the fish dishes so you wouldn't see the flakes. And the seed was given to my mentor's grandfather, H. Ralph Weaver, by Horace Pippin, the famous folk artist, African-American folk artist, in exchange for bee stings for his war injuries from World War I. And so that's the really powerful story that kind of ties up a lot of the things we just talked about, including my mentor. I'm going to stop there. There's really powerful stories here. A couple Gullah Geechee crops from the Sea Islands of Carolinas and Georgia. Here's my big Italian squash, Lunga di Napoli. I brought one here that we can cut open after. Another way that I'm trying to reclaim my Italian heritage through growing Italian vegetables. But I'm going to stop there and move on to the kind of content around, why keep seeds and how do we do it.
Okay, so to you, what is a seed? Anybody?
A blueprint?
A blueprint? A DNA capsule coding for future replications of itself? It's a baby. It's
a possibility.
A promise of possibility, exactly. I mean, the more I've evolved, I've gotten more past the strict botanical definition of what is a seed to it's a promise, it's a commitment, it's a promise to the future generations that, these seeds are, here now and we will take care of them to ensure them for the future. And, I wanted you to think about what does it actually mean to plant a seed? And, to me, it's a continuation. It's our responsibility. Seeds can be viewed as our relatives, and we're tied together. And especially in times of today, we're going to just lightly brush the politics of it because it is very intense. But in today's globalization of the seed world, and as well as everything else, there's been such an erosion of genetic diversity. And it's under, food crops in particular are under extreme pressure and threat. Things are being evolved or being selected for shipping, things like that. Not so much the flavor, the regionality of the item. So what does it mean to plant a seed is to protect it, to preserve it, to continue it forward. So, we can maintain that resource, that reservoir. Because especially with, and we'll talk a bit about some of the groups I work for, like Experimental Farm Network, which is a mutual friend of ours, Nate Kleinman and Dusty Hines. I grow for them, and one of their main missions is to plant things that are under threat from human actions, whether it be climate change or civil war. One of the things that I plant for them is a sorghum, and this is called coral sorghum, and it's available at several seed companies now, but I've been growing it I think this is my third year growing it for them, and it's from a village in South Sudan called Malakal. It's indigenous. Sorghum isn't such a big crop in this country except for animal feed, but in other countries around the world, it's a staple crop. And this is an interesting sorghum. It's a triple-use sorghum, so you can use it green for sweetener. They shred the stalks and extract the sap and then boil it down to make sorghum syrup like a molasses. And so for a sweetener, or the green immature heads, they strip off, like we would cut corn off the cob and they steam it or boil it in like butter and salt, kind of like a vegetable dish. Or they let the grain mature and dry on the head like I have it here. And it can be toasted and popped like we would eat popcorn. This is a popping sorghum. So you can eat it like a nutritious snack, or they can grind it into a flour at that point as well. So it's a very important crop. Now this village in Malakal was destroyed by civil war. Their seed stocks were lost. I work with several groups that utilize the resources USDA maintains several seed banks around the country, the Grin Repository, and so we get seed stocks from them, and they happen to have a sample of the sorghum. And one of our goals is to eventually, as the village is resettled in the future, is to be able to have enough of us farmers growing it that we're able to send seed stock back to them and rematriate the seed to the people. So to me, to plant this seed is an honor and a way of giving back as well.